guys, I am Adu playing Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition. This is my Dante Must Die run through the entire game as Dante and Nero. Now, it's going to be a simple run. If you haven't watched the first introduction video, please watch that. It's just going to explain what this, the run is about. And it's basically, like, it's pretty obvious. It's just going to be effective strategies for people that can't beat Dante Must Die. As I said in the other video, I'm going to try and entertain people by being a bit stylish. I'm going to give you some tips on how to beat certain enemies on this difficulty. The thing is I'm not going to say much in this mission in particular, and that's just because it's mostly scarecrows. I'll obviously say a little bit about Burial, but again, it's quite a simple boss fight, so there's not a lot to say. So I kind of want to discuss like what I think of the game in general. And one of the things that I really firmly believe is that this game was designed around Nero. And I say that because, like, the enemies seem to have logical answers as Nero, whereas you play as Dante, for example. And Dante, you have to do some weird stuff to, like, get to the enemies, to actually kill them. For example, I think they're called, I don't know what the White Knights are called, but the White Knights, they're awkward to fight as Dante, because the only way to really get at them, unless you know you're super pro, is to just jump behind them, and that seems very inelegant. Whereas Nero, you have a lot of plays, like you've got the Buster to bounce off a shield that you can then roll out the way, and there's a lot of different things you can do. And when you compare Nero to someone like Dante, who has infinitely more options, but most of them aren't that good. So I really feel like the game was just designed around Nero. Like if you look at Devil May Cry 3, for example, even the platforming, like in Devil May Cry 3, the platforming was designed around Dante when you played through the special edition as Virgil. Oops. The double jumping sections to get some of the secrets was really, really awkward. You know, it was like you had to use Trick instead, and it was really... It just didn't make sense, and it's kind of the same for the Nero versus Dante thing in Devil May Cry 4. Like, so much of the game just makes sense for it to be Nero's game. Now, as someone who actually started with Devil May Cry 4, I got into Devil May Cry about 8 to 10 years ago, I did like Nero as a character, and a lot of people didn't. And I reckon that's probably primarily because... Oh, this is the first area of the game when you face enemies that you don't normally face in this particular area. They're just Assault. With Assault, they're not too bad. Like, just don't let them get their attacks off like that. If they start doing their own shit, you're going to be fucked over. Where was I? What was my train of thought? Oh yeah, a lot of people didn't like Nero, and I don't think that's inherently because people didn't like what the character was. I think they disliked Nero because he isn't Dante, and people just loved having Dante be the badass that Dante is, and they wanted him to be the star of the show, the one that everything followed. And they went a different direction with Devil May Cry 4. Now, as someone who didn't start with like Devil May Cry 1 and all that, and this is where all the veterans like getting triggered because they like disagree with me, I thought it was quite a good one. I thought it was a very good game. And a lot of people have slowly swung around to it, which is why it's probably the main Devil May Cry in the series that is played today, along with Devil May Cry 3. And I don't know, like I did quite like Nero. I felt like his character was a bit underdeveloped, which I didn't like. But, you know, he's still a good character. He still fits the game. He still does what they wanted him to do. With that said, though, I do feel like they could have done a lot more to the story. Now, I personally didn't mind the backtracking back in the day, because I thought that it was intentional. Like, I thought it was designed so that you could see, like, you know, you had difficulties with the bosses you didn't have before. You had to learn how to do things in an entirely new way. And I found that really cool and interesting. You know, like when I faced... well, who'd you face when you first get Dante? I think you face Echidna as the first boss. And I found it really, really hard. Like, I couldn't... I was playing on human difficulty, and I didn't, like, die or anything silly, because human difficulty isn't hard at all. But it really was, like, tricky. I couldn't, like... Now, obviously, I was getting used to Dante at that point, and having never played a previous Devil May Cry game, it was a lot of buttons to get used to. But, like I just didn't know what the best way to fight the boss was. And I think I remember just like running around in circles, like shooting it a lot. And obviously as Dante, if you don't have like Pandora and whatnot, which the first time you're playing through the game you won't, you don't have anything for huge damage, and it's really awkward. So I was there just like dashing around, taking hits, trying to see what I could do, and it took me forever. And I thought that was intentional, but apparently it's because of budget limitations, so I can see why people get a little bit salty. I am running past that fight just because it's not necessary. It's a bunch of scarecrows. It's not helpful to anyone watching me killing them. Like, you know how to kill scarecrows. If you can't kill scarecrows on Dante Must Die, you should probably play an easier game mode. Some general tips. I did make a generic tips video, and that was... well, you'll find it on the channel, and that will give you a lot of basic tips that will really help you improve at the game. Simple stuff like just stay on the aggressive, don't stand around doing nothing. Things like that make a huge difference. Anyway, this is the first boss fight of the game, Burial. On Dante Must Die, Burial is quite dangerous. He's not hard. I can't believe I got hit there, didn't even see the animation. But he is dangerous in that he will do a lot of damage. And once in a while, he'll just do that randomly. And if you get caught by that, you're going to be taking a huge amount of unnecessary damage. So the main tips for this one are, his attacks are very obvious, like you see them coming a mile out. When you dodge an attack, you get a long time to just beat into him. Charge Shot level 3 does stun him. Don't want to get hit by that. If you get caught out by that, if it's not the big one, you can just Devil Trigger out of it, it's not a problem. And you want to keep hitting his head. Because what happens is, his flames disappear. Oh. Man, that's such a badly designed move, because it stuns you if you get caught in the range, and it means you have to like back out before it happens. But, anyway, you want to hit his head, and that will eventually like take out his flames, which will let you buster him. If he does that move, you can just run. It didn't actually come out, which is really weird. I don't know why, but whenever I fight against bosses, I get like the weirdest results. Like, they always do the weirdest of things. But there you go. So you take out his flame, and you always do an air buster first, because the ground buster actually knocks him away, as I'll demonstrate here. If you Devil Trigger before a buster, I was trying to show it. I should have wasted time with that. But if you Devil Trigger before a buster, it's a lot more powerful, obviously. Okay, there we go. So for this, you can just walk away from it, and then when he attacks, you can roll. You should pretty much never get hit by that if you've got your wits about you. And that's the fight. It's honestly not that difficult, and I don't expect many people to have much of a problem with it. And boom, there we go. I'm not showing cutscenes. If you really want to see the cutscenes, you can see them elsewhere. Like, that's not difficult. Or you can just like get good at the game and you watch them in game, look them on YouTube, whatever you want to do. But that's mission 2. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next video. Thank you for watching.